Weapons in video games are pretty fun. From the realistically modeled to the bizarre and mechanically implausible, there's a little bit of everything for everyone in the world of first-person shooters, and beyond if we're gonna be quite honest. It's these latter strange weapons that always call my attention, for a number of different reasons. It could be because they have an interesting story in their lore, it could be because they are mechanically interesting in gameplay, or it could simply be because they look freaking cool. Whether it is one or the other or a combination of them, these are guns that just always ignite a spark of passion in me. So as you can probably imagine, I really love taking a look at these more in depth whenever it's possible, and I really love games that actually take their time to explain where such strange things came from, and of course, when they decide to give them a unique twist for players to mess around with. It's with that in mind that today I actually like to introduce you guys to one of the weapons in a game called Unreal Tournament that I think perfectly fits the definition of a strange, bizarre, and mechanically implausible weapon, but that in spite of that, it just became one of the icons of the game for many people, and is one that, even if you don't necessarily know the name of it, you certainly remember it. The gun I'm referring to is simply known as the Ripper. This device has both the looks and the ammunition to deserve its name, carrying titanium saw blades that are fired at incredible speed and that can sometimes even be utilized as projectile explosives. Now, before we really dive into what exactly is it that this thing can do, I'd like us to first take a look at where exactly did it come from. After all, a weapon like this doesn't really seem like something a human will come up with, at least not one that would actually be allowed near the tools required to create a firearm. And you will be correct in that assumption. The Ripper's origins are only really revealed through the Unreal Tournament manual, and it's in here that we learn that it actually is a descendant of another weapon called the Razorjack. This was first introduced in Unreal Gold, the game that preceded Unreal Tournament, and it was actually a weapon that was first devised by a race known as the Scourge. They were a warrior race, and they would put the fear of God in any person of any species that ever crossed their path. They were technologically advanced, but culturally tribalistic, much like other sci-fi races like the Predators. War wouldn't just be something that happens every once in a while with the Scourge, it is their way of life, to the point where their soldiers will surgically install weapons in their bodies. Due to this, most of them will not actually be useful for other species, including humans, who were usually their main rival in the universe. However, the Razorjack was one exception to this rule, and it was something that a normal person could actually hold and fire. The ammunition, as previously mentioned, are titanium saw blades, which are shot at such speed that they can actually bounce off of walls. It's at this point that it's important to note that even in the fiction of Unreal Tournament, a projectile like this is largely impractical. You have weapons that can fire energy beams, explode them even. You have flak cannons that can be so powerful that they have been banned in intergalactic conflict. And of course, you have miniaturized explosives like the Redeemer, which can create a devastating nuclear effect when they are fired. So why would anybody, Scourge or otherwise, want to fire something like this? Now, I have a hypothesis, but in order to be able to explain it, first we'll have to take a look at what can this weapon do practically in the light of combat. Both of these weapons hit for around 30 HP each with every shot, and they can be fired with a relatively quick succession, meaning that you can actually spam both the Ripper and the Razorjack rather effectively. Combine this with the fact that their shots actually bounce off of walls, and you can easily spam an area that you really want to avoid other players going into. You can actually use this to, for example, deny somebody the rocket launcher on deck 16. Or you can try and use it to fire off of a wall towards an enemy that you don't feel confident taking head on. Now, while of course not being able to see your enemy means that you're likely not going to hit them, if you spam, you are likely going to hit at least once. Since every shot that finds purchase will take off 30 HP at the very least, that means that you only need to hit an enemy about 3 or 4 times before they are out of the game, whether because they have very low health or because you've straight up killed them. For that matter, if you happen to actually fire and hit somebody in the head, you will actually hit them for around 105 HP, which can decapitate them and trigger the ever lovely sound of headshot, which has become synonymous with the series. The Razorjack has a secondary fire mode, like most weapons in Unreal, which will actually allow you to slightly divert the trajectory of the projectile in order to be able to hit your target more accurately. However, it will turn the projectile on its side, meaning that it will be a bit more difficult to actually hit your target if you choose this. I found this to largely not be worthwhile. However, the secondary fire mode for its younger brother, the Ripper, is actually much more useful, as it actually turns the saw blades into explosives. While it doesn't do as much damage as a direct hit from a rocket launcher, it can still hurt quite a bit, and it can turn your projectile into an effective area of effect bullet that will be able to, once again, deny an area to another player, which is something very important in the genre of first-person shooters. On that note, according to the game, you should also have a tertiary function, which is actually putting the saw blades into a wall where they will now act as mines. However, I've found that it doesn't really work all the time, although it may be because it's a mutator of some kind and I just haven't been able to find a setting for it. Now, with all of this in mind, this is a weapon that rewards players for being a little bit more adventurous with the way that they play, and it rewards precision, because after all, trying to kill somebody with saw blades in an arena that is filled with miniguns, shock rifles, grenade launchers, etc., it seems mental. But those players who actually learn how to use this well will be rewarded by the game giving you these extra bonuses of being able to hit harder with every shot that actually hits the head, of being able to bounce the shots off of walls and protecting you from possible direct damage, and of course with being able to actually control how the battleground develops in every match. It's because of this that I have the hypothesis that this isn't really a weapon that is meant to be practical in any shape or form. No, this is the weapon that you use when you want to show off. For the Scourge, it perfectly makes sense, as they put battle above everything else in their society. Those who will be able to show prowess in fighting will probably be those that would also be the highest in their societal order. Being able to not just use a weapon that will, by all accounts, be impractical, but come out on top, and do so by bouncing shots off of walls, by denying your enemy those resources they so desperately need, and in the moment that they think they finally have a way to kill you, being decapitated by a perfectly bounced shot that they could have never seen coming. With that in mind, the weapon finally being in the hands of players in Unreal Tournament makes quite a bit more sense. See, the story of Unreal Tournament is that the Liandry Corporation, which is one of the biggest in the entire universe, sets up a tournament where people can go in and pay money to spectate people who will fight to the death. Now, thankfully, they utilize respawners, meaning that nobody truly dies in the tournament, although that doesn't make the carnage inside any less horrific. In a setting like this, those gladiators who could actually show off to the audience, could actually show that their prowess doesn't just rely on rough strength, but also on their agility, outsmart their opponents, keep them guessing at every turn, harass them with blades that seem to be coming out of nowhere, bouncing off of the walls, perhaps even by having those resources they were seeking so badly to try and survive just a few seconds longer exploded by one of these mines set up, only to finally be silenced once a shot lands on their neck, their head grotesquely rolling on the ground as the crowd cheers for the victor of that night's deathmatch. It will be a spectacle. It will bring the gladiator in question honor, prestige, probably more than one sponsorship. And of course, it will mean a lot of money for Liandry. We don't actually know if the Ripper is actually made by humans or if it's some other form of the Scourge actually reviving the weapon project of the Razorjack. But it would make sense for the human creators of the tournament to have reverse engineered it once they found that this thing could actually become a staple of the tournament. And it very quickly did become a staple of the tournament, not just in the lore of the game, but also for players across the world. There are many people out there who probably still remember this weapon fondly, or if they ever got harassed by it online, that still remember it with a pinch of salt. It's a weapon that just as easily as it could bring you glory, it could bring you shame, as unfortunately, given the fact that the shots bounce, they could very easily hit you back if you happen to not aim properly or you're just not paying attention. It's something where if you panic with it, you run the risk of doing as much damage to your enemy as to yourself. A weapon that is only really seen on the hands of those who know how to wield it, or who are brave enough to try and learn its strange and unique properties. A weapon that is effectively a relic of old and tribalistic customs that aren't practical neither for the Scourge, nor for any species that may decide to attempt wielding this insane platform. And yet at the same time, a beautiful and absolutely terrifying sight to behold in the hands of a true warrior, or a veteran of Liandry's insane and simply unreal tournament. So there we go, guys. Thank you very much for listening to my quick video on the Ripper, a gun that honestly I still really love to freaking use on Unreal Tournament whenever I play. Like, I've been playing through the tournament for this, and honestly I think I'm gonna probably end up finishing it at some point, just because it's still a pretty good game. And yeah, I also know that my accent was probably a bit difficult to understand through most of this, but you know, that's one of the bad parts of having English as a second language. So yeah, if you guys have any suggestions as to something that you think I could do better in the video, or you know, any guns that you may like to see from other series, let me know, because I want to keep making these to continue practicing video editing and audio editing, as well as just working with a microphone, because like those are things that I learned at my university courses, but I have to admit that I am quite rusty on that stuff. And this is a really good outlet to work with it. So yeah, apart from that, you know, leave a thumbs up if you like, a thumbs down if you disliked it, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time, whenever next time is.